On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers going for a sweep of the Miami Heat tonight in Miami. I think it's important to get it plus. We'll talk about Darius Garland's toe injury and why I don't think it makes sense for him to play in the rest of this series. That's all straight ahead on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. Before we get started, I'm in a little bit of a different location. I'm in Miami. This is the best place I could find to do this podcast. So my background is essentially completely dark. I'm outside right now at 10 o'clock Sunday night recording this podcast in Miami, Florida. My face is red because the sun was out all day and I was in the sun all day. So that's why this podcast looks the way that it looks. If you're listening via whatever podcast platform you get Locked On Cavs every day, this is normal. If you're watching on YouTube, things look different, and that's why. But thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today. And every day you can find the show anywhere you get your podcast. As I mentioned, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. The Cleveland Cavaliers can sweep the Miami Heat in the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs tonight. Game 4 is set for 7:30 here in Miami. I think it is important that the Cavs get a win tonight. I know that before this series started, I spoke about how I thought the Cavs would win this series in 5 games and that I had too much respect for Miami. I had too much respect for Heat head coach Erik Spoelstra and just what that franchise organization, I guess, if you will, is all about to predict that the Cavs would sweep a series. That's just not what I thought was going to happen. And you know, it's the playoffs. Like, yes, Miami went 37-45, and the Cavs have been preaching, you know, that's not a normal 10 seed. That's not a normal 8 seed, blah, blah, blah. And I did buy into that. And I don't necessarily think they're wrong. I also do think that the Cavs have maybe played, especially in game 3, which was incredible, a little bit better than I expected them to right out of the gate in the postseason. And I think that they need to win game 4. It's obviously not a must win. They're up 3-0 in this series. They're going to win this series. They're going to advance to take on most likely the Indiana Pacers. I'm recording this as the Pacers-Bucks game is going on right now on Sunday night. So I don't know what happens there. I know Damian Lillard got hurt, which could be a potentially serious injury. I picked the Pacers before that series, Dame or no Dame. I just don't think Milwaukee's very good. So for the sake of this discussion, we're going to pencil in the Indiana Pacers in the second round. So I think that's who the Cavs are going to face. And I think that being one of the things that I think is going to be a constant theme of this postseason, I think it's turning into a bit of an arms race. And I want to talk about that in a little bit. But health matters a lot in the postseason. And we will get to Darius Garland's toe injury, of course. Is that something that I don't get the sense is a huge deal, but he's questionable for tonight. I don't think he should play tonight. I'll tell you why later. But the Cavs have had a little bit of an interesting schedule where, yes, they had the week off before the start of this series, and then they had 2 days off between games 1 and 2, and then games 2 and 3. So they had a longer series built in where, you know, OKC finished off their sweep of the Memphis Grizzlies on the same day that the Cavs went up 3-0 because OKC didn't have back-to-back days off between their games where the Cavs, you know, played 3 games from Sunday to Saturday where OKC and Memphis played 4. So the Cavs have had more rest going in and they've been able to, for the most part, stay healthy and be well rested. But I think as the playoffs roll along, that is something that really, really matters. So I view Boston, who goes up 3-1 on Orlando, OKC, and the Cavs all in the same tier. And if you listen to this podcast, you know that's been a constant thought for me for a long time. And those three teams are all capable of winning the title. I'm not sure who else is. Maybe the Clippers, maybe Denver, whoever wins that series could be. Nobody else in the East. But they're capable of winning the title. And they're all three of the most, I think, the most talented teams in basketball. But often what decides who wins championships is the health aspect of it. Who is the freshest at the end of the playoffs? Like when we get to June, what team is the healthiest? Which team is the freshest? Like that is something that could be a deciding factor in a potential Cavs-Celtics conference finals in a few weeks. That could be something that has a very, very big impact on the way that series goes. So that's why I think getting through this series in 4 games is important. Because one, playing a 5th game, anytime you play a basketball game, there is that risk that somebody's going to get hurt. Now, I don't know that there's more risk somebody gets hurt in a game 5 than a game 4 tonight. I don't know. But what I do know is that every game that goes on longer is more taxing on the body for guys on the Cavs. And if you think back to the second era LeBron teams where they knew at the start of the season, we're going to be playing in June, probably going to be playing the Warriors in June, but they knew they were going to be playing in June. So the mentality for them when the postseason arrived was we need to take care of our business as quickly as possible. And you saw that in the first 3 years when Kyrie was still on the team. What they do, they swept the first round every year. And then they got a week off between the first round and the second round. And I think that is a really big advantage that the Cavs should be. That is what the Cavs ultimately are playing for tonight. They're not playing to beat Miami. They're not playing to advance in the playoffs. Like those things are already done. The series is over. They're moving on to the second round. What they're playing for is the opportunity to rest. And I think that opportunity is a really important one. And if you look at this team, and I expect Miami to put up a better fight in game 4 than they did in game 3, quite frankly, I was really surprised with the lack of fight that the Miami Heat showed on Saturday afternoon. I expect that to be better Monday night, but the Cavs aren't just playing the Heat. They are playing to achieve a goal, and that goal should be we want a week off because the conference finals, the earliest they can start for the Cavs is Saturday. That is the earliest possible date. So if the Pacers, who I think are going to probably win tonight, I don't know. If they win tonight and they win game 5 and they beat the Bucks in 5 games, that they'll get time off too. But the series, it's not as if the series is just going to start on, Friday or Thursday, if that's the case. It cannot start before Saturday or Sunday. Now, if that Pacers-Bucks series goes to 6 games, I don't think it can start until next Monday or Tuesday. So what does that give the Cavs? That gives them an added week off. And I think that at this time of the year, where all of these games, and maybe for the Cavs, they haven't been as taxing because they've won in blowout fashion in 2 of the 3 games. And of course, game 2 was close, but maybe they haven't been as taxing for Cleveland as they have been some other teams, but you still want to build that rest in. You still want to stay as fresh as possible. You want to be as healthy as possible because unless there's a situation like last year, where the Boston Celtics were very clearly in a league of their own in the NBA. They were the best team in the league by miles, which there is not a team like that this year. I think OKC, Cleveland, and Boston can all say we are the best team in basketball, but there's not a big gap. Like no matter who you think is 1, 2, and 3, it's a very thin margin. With that, that means health matters. That means being fresh matters. The fewer playoff games the Cavs have to play, the better off they're going to be, right? Look at what's going on with Boston. They got a win on Sunday night. They beat Orlando. They're ahead 3-1 in that series. They're going to win that series. They will be moving on to face, in all likelihood, the New York Knicks, who also took a 3-1 lead over the Detroit Pistons on Sunday. But Boston now has to play a game 5, and they'll probably win a game 5. But what's going on in Boston? Drew Holiday, hamstring injury. Jaylen Brown dealing with knee stuff, which he's dealt with for a while. Jason Tatum keeps getting hit on the wrist. Like if you watched that game on Sunday, it was Tatum got hit on the wrist again. Like he's down and injured. And that Orlando series is one I think that a bullet dodged by the Cavs, not because Orlando's capable of beating Cleveland 4 times in 7 games, but because Orlando is so physical. And if you've watched the first 4 games of that series, what do you know is going to happen in game 5, which I believe is Tuesday? Orlando is going to fight until the final buzzer. They're going to be physical until the final buzzer. Because the Celtics screwed around and lost game 3, they have to go through that for an additional 48 minutes. For winning this game for the Cavs, yes, winning a playoff series is part of the journey. That wasn't the end goal for them. It was the expectation. When you win 64 games, it should be a formality, and it has been, and give credit to the Cavs for that. But the Cavs are playing this 48 minutes on Monday, so they don't have to play another 48 minutes. That's what this should be about. There should be a sense of urgency to end this series because of what awaits them on the other side of it. And what awaits them on the other side of it, if they take care of business on Monday, is rest, health, and being able to start preparing for most likely Indiana. Maybe some people could potentially start looking ahead to Boston. I think that it's a really big deal to take care of business as it comes. Now, if the Cavs lose on Monday night, it's not the end of the world, right? Like, it's not, oh man, things have really changed because the Cavs couldn't get it done in game 4. I don't think that's true. But what I do think is true is that if the Cavs find a way to get a win on Monday night, which they should, and they're heavy favorites in this game, we'll talk about Darius Garland in a second, but the Cavs should find a way to win this game. I really do wonder if Miami, how they're going to respond to just absolutely letting go of the rope on Saturday. I don't have that answer, but the Cavs, if they find a way, they'll get rewarded. And their sense of urgency shouldn't only be about beating the Heat. It should also be about, if we do this, if we take care of business, we get the opportunity to rest. We get the opportunity to be healthy. And that, I think, is a really big advantage, not only in the second round, but the conference finals, the NBA finals. Taking care of business is a must. And that's why I think, despite the fact that the Cavs are up 3-0 over Miami, game 4 is a really big one for Cleveland. Now, I think there's a little bit of an arms race, if you will, going on in the NBA. I'll tell you what that is, and we're going to talk about it, and I have a comparison I want to bring back up next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball and hockey playoffs are here, and there's no better time to turn your sports knowledge into real cash with Prize Picks, the top destination for daily fantasy action. Prize Picks makes it simple. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and you're in. You can even mix and match players across basketball, hockey, baseball, and more for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. In basketball, maybe you're like me. Maybe you're like me and you got it wrong and you took more on the assists and rebounds for Luka Doncic on Sunday. Thought, you know what? Luka's good for at least a handful of both, right? Nope. 2 assists, 1 board. That's it. Lakers lose. 2 assists, 1 board. I thought, man, there's no way he doesn't reach the number I need him to reach. He didn't. You could do that. It's as easy as just picking the correct answer. Unlike what I did, plus every lineup you make on Prize Picks will enter you in the Takes 2 tickets sweepstakes, which could get you in a +1, a VIP trip to the ship. So download the app today. That is Prize Picks, and use code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDON NBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review, friend. Tell a friend. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. So I want to take a trip in the time machine because I do wonder if a little bit of this is going on right now in the NBA. Let's go back to 2017. It was the year after the Cavs won the title. The Golden State Warriors had acquired Kevin Durant as a free agent the summer before. And that Warriors team went from a 73-9 juggernaut to a much better team that didn't have as good of a record, but they were a much better team with Kevin Durant part of it. And when they got into the postseason, they rolled everybody in the Western Conference. It was close for a second in the game against the Spurs, and then Zaza Pachulia undercut Kawhi Leonard, and that series was over despite San Antonio leading at the time by like 25 points. That series ended right there. And the Warriors hadn't lost the game They swept the first round, they swept the second round, and they would ultimately go on to sweep the conference finals too. They went 12-0 against Western Conference opponents. And the Cavs that year, they swept their first round opponent, which was the Indiana Pacers. That included a huge comeback in game 3 in Indy, where I believe they were down by 25 points at halftime, which was a record for largest halftime deficit overcome in the postseason, just broke by OKC this past weekend against Memphis. So that is what the Cavs did. They also swept the first round. They swept Indy. They swept the Toronto Raptors because, of course, they did. That's all they would do in the second round. And then they played the Boston Celtics in the conference finals. And Boston tried really, really hard in that regular season. They were the 1 seed. Isaiah Thomas, that was the year he finished in the top 5 voting for NBA MVP. It was Jaylen Brown's rookie year. And the Celtics worked really, really hard to be the top seed, to try and build themselves into a contender. But everybody knew that, no, they are not an actual contender. So the Cavs go to Boston and they led by like 50 points in game 1, like legitimately 50 points in game 1. They won game 2. And then they came back home to, at the time, I believe it was Quicken Loans Arena. And they lost game 3 to the Boston Celtics. It was a stunning loss. Nobody thought that was going to happen. Once the Cavs won the first 2 games in Boston, it was just presumed, it's going to be a sweep. And that loss felt like more than just one loss. It felt like they almost lost a bit of a battle to the Golden State Warriors, because it was almost which team is going to blink first in the postseason between the Cavs and the Warriors. And this year, I think it's 3 teams. I think it's the Cavs, I think it's the Celtics, and I think it's the Thunder. And Oklahoma City, as I mentioned in the first segment, already completed their sweep. They beat Memphis in all 4 games. Games 3 and 4 were probably a little bit closer than they should have been. Obviously, games 1 and 2, the Thunder looked fantastic. They had one of the best playoff wins ever in game 1, at least by margin of victory. And the Boston Celtics are still playing. They have to play game 5 tomorrow against Orlando. What the Cavs can do with a win tonight is they can match Oklahoma City. And they can, I don't know if it's a mental edge that matters. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But they can sort of one-up Boston in a way. And yeah, the Celtics have a more difficult first-round opponent. Orlando is a better team than Miami. I don't really think there's a debate there. But what the Cavs can do is say, we took care of business. We swept the first round. And I don't expect the Cavs to go through the Eastern Conference undefeated in the playoffs. And I don't expect Oklahoma City to either. And obviously Boston won't, as they already have a loss. But what I do think is curious is winning as many games as quick as possible, a little bit of mental warfare, if you will, against the other 2 contenders in the NBA, where Boston already has a loss. And, maybe that's just a little bit of a chip in their armor. Oklahoma City probably should have had a loss. I don't know that you can really say that about the Cavs. Like, I don't think that they've trailed in the second half of any of the playoff games they've had so far. That obviously cannot be said for the other 2 teams. So I do wonder if there's maybe a bit of just trying to one-up each other. If the Cavs are playing this game more than just to sweep the Heat, more than just to earn the rest that I talked about in the first segment, but also to kind of one-up OKC, to kind of one-up the Boston Celtics. I wonder if that's part of it. Now, if you ask the Cavs about that, I'm sure that's not what they're saying. But I do think, as far as narratives go and how this team is talked about, looking good matters. Right? Like, what was the conversation, not only by me, because I don't think my tone necessarily changed after Saturday's game, but what was the conversation nationally after the Cavs were leading Miami by 40 points and ultimately won by 37 in a do or die game 3 for the Heat? What was the conversation about the Cavs, right? Like, guys on TNT mentioned the Cavs are going to the finals. The Cavs are winning the finals. That is the type of thing that maybe doesn't get talked about in the locker room, doesn't matter in the locker room. But I do think it's the type of thing that the conversation about the Cavs will be a little bit different if they sweep Miami, if they look good doing it. And I do think that, that might matter in other locker rooms. And I think that the Cavs should want to have any possible leg up they can on Boston, on OKC. And The eye test is part of that. OKC's eye test victory is game 1. The Cavs eye test victory was game 3. I don't know that Boston has a great eye test victory. I think that Orlando has played them really, really tough, and a lot of credit for Orlando. They just don't have enough firepower to get it done. But overall, the Cavs are playing for a lot on Monday night. I think they're playing for a narrative. I think they're playing for rest. And I do think that, hey, they are playing to sweep the Miami Heat too. Now, Darius Garland on the injury report Sunday as questionable with that toe sprain. What does that mean? Why I don't think he should play, and how worried should we be? I'll tell you all of that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is, of course, America's #1 sportsbook, and the NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action, because right now when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. All you got to do, pick a $5 winner. Maybe that's the Cavs over the Miami Heat in game 4 tonight. Maybe it's something else. I don't know what you think is going to win, but I do know if you're new to FanDuel and that first $5 bet does win, $250 in bonus bets are yours. And FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props, from 3-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same game parlay for a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com, that is FanDuel.com, and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Again, FanDuel.com, or download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said, if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Darius Garland is listed as questionable for tonight's game against Miami Heat with a left great toe sprain. The great toe is the big toe. People were making jokes on social media that, it might be called the great toe, but his toe not great right now. I would be surprised if Darius Garland plays in this game. Not to say that he won't. We will learn more on Monday morning at shoot around. We will obviously learn more before the game, but I don't think it makes sense for Garland to play. This injury is a re-aggravation of something that was bothering him at the end of the regular season. When he did miss games like against Indiana, both games against Indiana, I guess, the 2 of the final 3 regular season games, when he did miss those games, he was not listed out with rest. He was listed out with a left great toe sprain. So this is something that has been bothering him. And Kenny Atkinson, when I asked him about this the other day, he said that it was re-aggravated during the 4th quarter of game 2. And there's that clip that's floating around of him contesting a shot in the left corner. I don't know if that's the exact play that it was re-aggravated on. Obviously, it was bothering him at that point. But I don't think there should be any reason to rush Garland back. When you have a 3-0 series lead, which obviously the Cavs have, and you're in this position to where they afford to drop one? Sure. But what's the rush in bringing Darius back, especially when the team just went into Miami on Saturday, played as well as they possibly could have, and won by 37? I'm not saying that the Cavs don't need Darius Garland, because they do very much need Darius Garland to play at a high level, to be an all-star caliber guy, to be an all-NBA type of guard. But that's sort of exactly the point, that they need him to be great. They don't need him to be great to beat Miami. On Saturday, they don't need him to be great to beat Miami tonight. If they lose tonight and face a game 5 on Wednesday in Cleveland, they don't need Darius Garland to be great to win that game. They need Darius Garland to be great to win the title, ultimately, when we get to potentially this team playing in June. That's when they need Darius Garland to be awesome. They need him to be awesome against the Boston Celtics in the conference finals. They probably need him to be really good against the Indiana Pacers in the next round of the playoffs. But what they don't need to do is rush him back and allow him to play in a game before he's 100%. I don't get the sense from talking to people, from being around, I don't get the sense that this is some serious injury. I don't think the Cavs are very concerned about Garland's health right now, but this could be something that if he goes out and re-aggravates it again, it could continue to linger. And ultimately, the goal for the Cavs was always to be playing their best basketball in the postseason, go on a run and do all those things that we are seeing happen now in real time. But to do that, they need the best of Darius Garland. They need Garland to be awesome. He doesn't need to be awesome against Miami. They don't need him right now. They didn't even need Donovan Mitchell really to have a good game on Saturday, and they won by 37. They should be able to take care of business without him. And I would, getting back to what I said in the opening segment of this podcast today, is the rest is the stuff that really matters. Like, that is one of the things that they're playing for. So let's say the Cavs win tonight. Let's say they sweep the Heat and the series is over in 4 games. As I mentioned earlier, the earliest they can play is Saturday. That is the absolute earliest possible date they could face their round 2 opponent. So let's say that's the case. That would mean that Darius goes from last Wednesday to next Saturday without playing a basketball game. That is a considerable amount of time off in the playoffs. And maybe that 1 week off wasn't enough, but if he ultimately plays, 3 games in 3.5 weeks, it would be, going back to that game against the New York Knicks and missing the night before against the Pacers. If he does that, I think then you start to feel a little bit better about his health. You feel a little bit better about this situation. So I think that for Garland, health and rest should be prioritized. And I think that should mean he shouldn't play until the Cavs are seeing the Pacers or the Bucks in the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Maybe he wants to play. Maybe the Cavs want him to play. Maybe he feels 100%. But with him on the injury report, there's no need to rush him back right now because this series is over. And I think that's the direction the Cavs would go. Will they go that way? I don't know. We will have to wait and find out tonight. But thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button for me. As I mentioned, I am in Miami. I will be at Game 4 tonight. I will have a post-game podcast up as soon as I can. The game is at 7:30, so hopefully around midnight, an instant reaction podcast is up. And then, of course, first thing Tuesday morning, your first listen, Locked On Cavs, everywhere you get your podcasts and YouTube as well. Thank you for making this your first listen today. Go make Locked On NBA your second listen, and I will talk to you tomorrow.